Hi everyone, Joel here again, and today we're looking at tilt-shift photography. You can see with my Photoshop open here, I've got an image which I've applied a tilt-shift blur to it and made a couple of other adjustments as well. What you're looking at is something that's a village scene here that almost looks like it's a toy village scene. And the reason for that is that you can see only a strip of the photo in sharp focus, and the rest of it's in very soft focus. So why does it give this illusion that this is a model, scale model, or a toy? And the answer is about how we look at macro photography and how we look at objects up close. In this case, you can see a picture here of a camera getting right up close to a beetle. Now, when this sort of photo is taken, even though it's a different photo, you'll see here what I'm talking about. The background is always blurred out because the focus is so strongly on the beetle here. This is what we call depth of field. So this is a very shallow depth of field because only part of the image is in focus and the rest is out of focus. So when we're looking at a picture like this, we're used to looking at something that's quite small. That's taken close up. So let's go back to my image here. And the reason why it sort of looks like a scale model is because our eyes are playing a trick on us. We actually think that this is a small model because the background is soft and focused and there's a shallow depth of field. There's a thin strip that's in focus. So our eyes are sort of making our brains believe that this is actually something small being taken at a close distance, but in fact this is something quite big taken at a long distance. So when you do that and yet you blur the background and create a shallow depth of field, you get that illusion of tilt-shift photography. And of course you can do tilt-shift photography with an actual camera with a tilt-shift modification, but this particular project is showing you how to create that effect into Photoshop. Okay, so I'm going to jump to another file here, and this is the original photo as it is. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create this layer as a smart object. And I'm just going to right-click the layer here, not right-click the thumbnail here, but right-click the layer and choose Convert to Smart Object. Now, what that does is this allows me to make some adjustments in a non-destructive way. Non-destructive means that no pixels are being harmed in the execution of this project. So that any time we make adjustments, we can always go back and change those adjustments. So changing this, in this particular case, it's a really good idea to make sure that the layer is a smart object before we go any further. So now we've done that, we're going to go to the filter menu, go to the blur gallery over here and choose tilt shift. And this gives us this sort of appearance here. And what you're looking at is a sort of gradual lessening of the focus. Over here in the middle, this strip is very sharply in focus. Over here, these two solid lines represent the border of that focus. This dotted line represents a sort of gradient of focus from sharp focus to no focus, and then the rest of it's no focus. So it's up to you about where you position this. This circle over here can be moved. You need to make sure, this is very important, that when you do move it, that you click right in the center here to move it. And I always move that into the center of the, not the center of the image, the center of the area that I'm going to keep in sharp focus. So I'm going to keep these buildings in the foreground here in sharp focus. So I'm going to put the circle about there and let go. This little wheel here, as I click and move it, this increases the blur or decreases the blur. So we'll leave it at 15, around about 15 for the moment. See how that looks. So the way I usually do this is I actually bring this this solid line right here at the top of my circle, bring this bottom solid line right at the bottom of the circle. I bring this little gradient dotted line here to the top of the position where I'm going to lose the focus, and this one over here to the bottom. So basically what I'm saying is this whole area here I want to be in sharp focus. Now, of course, it's not like that because you can see the focus going away, but I've done it this way because I want to show you about the masking. So I'm going to leave it like that. I'm happy with that, and I'm going to press OK. All right, but I've still got a problem because there are parts of this image, and this is an exact strip of an image. So there are parts of this image that are out of focus that I want to be back into focus. And here comes the important thing about making this a smart object, because this particular filter, the blur gallery that you can see here, has already got a very useful mask attached to it. So let's click on that layer mask, this white rectangle here. Make sure we're looking at a paintbrush, and I'm painting in black, as you can see here. And for my purposes, this size brush looks fine. It depends on your photo about what size you want. But this is 100, and it's a soft brush, so there's no hardness to it at all, as you can see. And I'm just going to start, and make sure that you are actually painting on your layer mask, otherwise you'll start painting black on your picture. I'm just going to start painting here, and so white reveals, black conceals. That's the rule with layer masks. So by painting black, I am concealing the effect, basically, the filter that we've put on it. And I'm just sort of painting some areas here that I would like to keep in focus. Sort of like that. Maybe a bit here, up here as well. A little bit more here. Now, I'm doing this very quickly. I would certainly suggest that your students take the time to use the zoom tool and zoom in and actually, make sure that you do get all those edges like this. I am using a soft brush, so there are parts of it that are coming out. So what we can do is switch to white and then just paint those back in like that. You can use a hard brush if you like. I just find a hard brush for this sort of thing is quite harsh, I guess, and makes those lines between filter on and filter off really, really obvious. And I like it to be less obvious, a bit more subtle than that. So yes, I get your students to really zoom in and fix it up. I'm just going to zoom out again to have a look, and that's sort of like the effect I'm going for. I might paint a bit more, actually make sure I'm in black, paint a bit more over here. Okay, and of course, if you think you've gone too far, if you look at it and go, actually, no, I'm not sure that's really what I was looking for, then you can again switch to the white, paint that blur back in. You're not really painting a blur, you're painting onto the layer mask. So black conceals, white reveals. Okay, so that looks pretty good, but let's just say, you know what, that's maybe too harsh a blur. I had it at 15 and now I'm thinking maybe a bit more subtle than that. Well, again, that's why we converted this to a smart object, because at any time I can double click this filter and I can change it how I need to. In this case, the blur is at 15. I might change it to 10 and see how that looks and press OK. So now that blur is just a little bit more subtle, and I think that looks pretty good. All right, so there you go, pretty simple project. It takes a while to paint in those parts of the layer mask. It's up to you about how finicky you want to be with your students. But anyway, that's how I show my students tilt shift photography in Photoshop. Thanks for listening.